Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. Yes, I have a guest at last. I bet all of you out there are fed up of listening to me drone on about nonsense every single day. And yeah, we've got a guest. I got someone to speak to. It's Nathan Simpson. How's life, Nathan?
Life's amazing, to be honest, Lee. Really, really good.
You look really good as well. Nathan, well, thinking about it, I'm already going to do an intro that explains Nathan. So I'm not going to talk about who Nathan is because you already know, because I've just told you that, right? What we're going to do, we're going to start with an icebreaker, Nathan, because I know you're a little bit nervous. So we're going to start with an icebreaker, but one with a difference. Because you know when we go on these business retreats and they do these icebreakers and they say things like, what's your favorite hit record? Yeah. Well, you know, I think that's a bit too easy. This book here, How Far Will You Go, by Evelyn McFarlane and James Saywell, it's got some crackers in it, right? Some really ones that you have to think about. But because I really like you, I'll give you 3 chances to fold, right? So you can fold 3 times, but then you have to answer the 4th one. All right. Pick a number from 1 to 127.
Oh, wow. Let's go with number 25.
Number 25. The suspense is killing me. Oh, this is an easy one. Where would you most hate to have a piercing?
Oh, dear. It's got to be the nipple. Surely every man's worst nightmare is having the nipple pierced.
Fuck that for a laugh, Nathan. I don't want my cock pierced.
I didn't want to say it, but now you've said it, Lee. Yeah, I agree.
Actually, though, I'm with you with the nipple. I tell you why, Nathan. I have the world's smallest nipples. I'm not about to get it out right now because I am aware that I share quite a lot about my life with the listeners. So getting my nipple out is not the right thing to do. I did once consider having my nipple pierced, but I just thought it was too small. I didn't think it'd ever happen. You know, maybe I'm going to have to do that, Nathan, because I'm afraid of it. Let me make a note. Pierced nipple. Wait there.
Yeah.
All right.
Pierced nipple.
Pierced nipple. Look, Nathan, the way that we experience the world when we're younger really profoundly influences us as we get older, right? And I knew you grew up in Carlisle. So let's start there. How did the world that you grew up in and the time and the era and the society and the culture, how did that lead to you becoming addicted to alcohol?
Wow. Well, so for people that don't know, Carlisle is a city in the very north of England, so it's right on the border between England and Scotland, so it's a very working class type place, and basically everybody drinks alcohol, you know, just literally everybody. The whole social construct just revolves around alcohol. So I think I probably had my first exposure, my first drink at age 14, maybe 15, and quite a sort of shy person, to be honest, quite an introvert. So I think really I followed the crowd to try and feel a little bit sort of more relaxed. And I think my first taste was probably just cider or something like that, you know, just down the park, everyone else is drinking whatever it was, like White Lightning, and it was, you know, rank, that you just done it to fit in. And then from there, really, it just evolved to the usual going down the pub at age 16 with the lads, weekend drinking. And then, yeah, that was basically it. That's how I got involved. That's how I had my first drink. And the story and the journey went on from there, I suppose.
What about just a little bit before your teenage years? Because obviously our parents, whether we like it or not, and I've always said I'd never be like my dad and turned out exactly like my dad. Our parents really influenced us. Do you remember like any influence around alcohol coming from seeing your parents drink or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, my mum and dad had a sort of very difficult relationship. My dad didn't live with us a lot of the time. He was sort of here, then he was away. He was from the northeast. He was from near Newcastle. But certainly, you know, they drank. Basically, all my family drank as well. You know, everyone in Carlisle drinks, you know, pretty much. I don't really know anybody who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
So certainly I did have experiences of seeing it around the family. drinking at Christmas and weekends and everything like that, basically. And also, it was a bit of a negative in my life. I've seen a lot of arguments going on within the family, and but it still didn't stop me from going on to drinking.
Well, it just goes to show how powerful the influence is, on our subconscious, because I, like you, not necessarily so much with the alcohol, but definitely with the smoking. I was a kid in the back of the car puking up in a quick save carrier bag because my dad wouldn't let me wind the windows down while him and my mum were puffing away like chimneys in the front. And I swore blind that I'd never smoke because I hated it. And as soon as I moved out when I was 18, it's one of the first things I did.
Yeah.
So the influence is undeniable there. When you talk about your teenagers being around 14, doing things to fit in and not really, being a little bit of an introvert and being a little bit shy. Do you remember consciously making a decision to drink alcohol? Or was it more a case of you look back now and go, people like us did things like this?
Definitely. I mean, I just fell into it. I never once sat down, weighed up the pros and cons. I don't remember having any education on, how it affects us, how it affects the body, how it affects the mind, the negative aspects. I don't remember having any of that at school, to be honest. I fell into it because everyone else was doing it. And it was just normal. It was normal to drink. If you didn't drink, you were deemed sort of abnormal, really. You didn't really fit in at all. But yeah, I certainly never made a conscious choice to do it. I just fell into it and carried on for the best part of nearly 20 years. So.
I mean, that's an important point for strivers listening in, just to interject there, is, sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, when you're going through a process that Nathan has and I have, where you go from being someone who drinks alcohol to someone who doesn't drink alcohol anymore, it's really important to develop some compassion around yourself, because you can get really angry when you realize what you've been doing and how you've quote unquote wasted large parts of your life. So you need that compassion. And one of the ways that I found that is really a good way of getting a good shot in your arm is to realize that you never ever made a conscious choice to take this drug. Like, if I was to say to you now, do you want to take some heroin? You would make a conscious choice. You would turn around and write a list of do's and don'ts. Well, you wouldn't, because culturally you would just go either way. But we could make that list. We never made that list when we were kids, and I think even the people who say, yeah, I made a conscious choice, I still believe that resistance plays a big role in that kind of belief that they did make a choice, because it makes things seem like, we're in control type of thing. When did you realize that you had a problem with alcohol?
I think the warning signs were probably there quite early on. I got into a few scrapes, getting into scuffles on nights out and things like that. But I think I really started questioning my relationship with alcohol probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was just getting to the point where it seemed everything revolved around it, like literally everything. It was, couldn't really go the weekend without having a drink on a Friday night after work to relax, or, Sunday watching the football with some beers. And just when I did want to cut back, when I decided, hold on, this is, I'm drinking a bit too much and it's affecting my weight and things like that. Why can't I cut back? And I found it really difficult to cut back. And it's taken me really about the best part of 6 or 7 years to get on top of it and finally sort of close the door on it. Because every time I tried to quit, I just tried to white knuckle it, just wake up a terrible hangover and say, oh, that's it, I'm done drinking. And then come, the following Friday, you're itching to get back on it again. The pain of the hangover's gone away, and then it was just back into that cycle. And it wasn't really till I really started to educate myself and seek out books and things like that that I realised why I couldn't sort of just knock it on the head. 6
to 7 years. I mean, if you're listening to that, folks, you might be thinking, fucking hell, 6 or 7 years. I want to quit now. Look, I read the Allen Carr's book and quit by the time I'd read it. However, a bit like Nathan, the cognitive dissonance crept in, I would say, a good decade before. I think whenever you wake up in the morning and you're not just in a rote fashion going, that's it, I'm never fucking drinking again. But there's a part of you that seriously questions it, like, what the fuck am I doing? About then, the cognitive dissonance starts creeping in. I think once it creeps in, you know, it kind of stays and hangs around. But Nathan, just goes to show that it does take a long time, and how addictive this thing is, and that you do need to have a bit of patience with you, and that it'll all work out in the end. You know, we all drink alcohol because we love it. You know, what was it that you loved about it when you were drinking?
Well, I didn't. Well, I still don't believe. I certainly wasn't physically addicted to it. I was definitely psychologically or emotionally addicted to it. You know, I firmly believe that I couldn't go out on a night out and have fun without a drink. If I had a crappy day at work, I wanted to de-stress. You know, yeah, easiest way to do that is to get 4 cans and sit there, watch the footy or whatever. You know. So to be honest, that was the sort of things I used it for, was either to sort of socially relax if I was going out, or to de-stress. So they were the things that I loved about it, and the fact it took away my shyness, really, you know, that nervous edge. But then I've come to realise through all the reading I've done and the learning that if you never face any situations without the crutch of alcohol, you know, those social situations or the stress, then you never can deal with it without alcohol, you know, or any other drug, depending on what your weapon of choice is, so to speak. So, yeah, that was the 2 things I really used it for, to be honest.
Yeah, no, really good, important point there, Nathan. You know, it's like we do need to experience suffering, and we need to experience a bit of pain in order for us to grow. And, you know, as a ultra marathon runner, you know that more than anybody. And it's the same psychologically as it is biologically, I guess. Now, I'm not somebody who's ever suffered from shyness. I know though that after drinking alcohol, that I realized that I'm more introverted, and that I built up a story that I was extroverted for the same reasons that I wanted to drink alcohol, for status, you know. But I was never any, you know, I get nervous and anxious in any social situation. I get nervous before I'm doing this podcast, for example. But then when I get into it, like, the nerves just kind of disappear. But I do read that some people find that actually drinking alcohol and the whole kind of rigmarole and the whole the ritual around drinking it and the thinking about it is actually making you more nervous than if you went out and didn't drink it. So it makes you more introverted, because you start thinking, oh my God, what if I fucking get drunk tonight and make a dick of myself, etc., etc. Did that work? How did that work for you? Did that work at all?
No, I mean, that didn't really come into play for me. I mean, I kind of, when I went out, I drank to get drunk and just completely let go.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't really sort of think about it or obsess about it and think, oh, what about if I make a dick of myself? It was just, you know, go out and get smashed. That was the mentality. I mean, we spoke about my background. I was in the army as well for the best part of 14 years, and the drinking culture in the military is huge as well. So it's like a badge of honour, you know, who can get the most pissed, you know. Mm-hmm. I didn't think about that at all. I just went in and then dealt with the consequences the next day. Hopefully I didn't piss anybody off too bad. But yeah, so that wasn't really something I worried about.
So you quit alcohol. What was the most challenging aspect of it? So we've touched upon the stuff you liked the most, which was this almost like a belief that it was giving you some special powers, that you could blend in almost with people and be a different Nathan and a more confident Nathan. What was the challenging aspect then of stopping drinking? Because like you said, it didn't turn out to be that easy. So what did you find really difficult?
Well, I say it didn't turn out to be easy. I mean, like I said, I was questioning my relationship for probably 6 or 7 years, you know, my relationship with alcohol. But when I actually made a firm decision to stop and take some action rather than just saying, I'm never drinking again, I didn't actually find it that difficult, because like you, I read the Allen Carr book, The Easy Way to Control Alcohol. And before I read that book, when I decided I wanted to take an extended break, I didn't say I'm going to definitely stop or I'm going to do 6 months, a year. I just said I'm going to take a break. My biggest fear really was not about myself missing out from alcohol. It was about how other people would view me and judge me. It was the fear, You know, my whole social circle was built up around drinking. You know, all my mates about going out on the smash, and so it was really, how are they going to respond? It wasn't really about me. I sort of got to the point where I was that sick of the hangovers and, you know, just feeling crappy all the time and tired and lethargic. But I didn't really care about that. I wanted to stop for however long. But my fears really were around other people. You know, how would I manage? How would I fit into social situations? And is everyone just going to disown me, basically? They were my biggest fears. But once I read the Allen Carr book, I've not really suffered any cravings at all. I had triggers, you know, situations where I'd go into and I think, well, hold on, normally I'd be drinking, but because I had such education and the Allen Carr book had completely just took everything that I believed to be true about alcohol and dismantled it, the cravings weren't there. You know, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I'm missing out now. I actually felt glad that I was no longer drinking because it just dismantled all the arguments that I'd given myself to continue drinking, really.
What you said there is, you know, a massive piece of the philosophy that we have at Truth About Alcohol is taking the vow. So at some point, you took the vow not to be someone who doesn't drink alcohol, but you took the vow to do something about the situation that you was in, more than just saying, right, that's it, I'm never drinking again. Was there a particular incident that happened that led you to think, right, I'm getting on Google and fucking finding out? Like, how did you find Allen Carr? What happened that didn't happen 6 or 7 years before? Because that's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so it's actually 1 year today since I stopped drinking.
No way, is that true?
Yeah.
Happy anniversary as we drink our tea.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's 365 today, and traditionally I'd always gone out on Boxing Day. So Boxing Day was always the big smash up with the lads.
Wow,
and yeah, so last Boxing Day I went out, got totally smashed, you know, drinking sambucas and shots, and I used to suffer really bad from blackouts when I drank, and I blacked out, you know, I lost massive portions of the night, and the next day, just, you know, the hangover was terrible. It was really, really bad, and I just felt really, really rubbish because I've recently become a dad as well, so I've got a little boy who's 3 next month, and I just thought, I can't go on being like this. I can't be the best dad that I can be, you know, having no energy, being 5 stone overweight, having high blood pressure, you know, where's this all heading? And it was basically that night out, which was the straw that broke the camel's back. I woke up that next day and said, right, I'm taking a break. So I got online and I started searching for podcasts. I'd read somewhere about, you know, getting podcasts and how they can help, and somehow I found your podcast.
Right.
You come up and I listened to a couple of episodes, and I think you mentioned the Allen Carr book, and then I got on Amazon. I got the Allen Carr book, and then that's how it all started, basically. So by finding you is how I found the Allen Carr book, and then from there it just snowballed. I joined the 1 year no beer challenge because I like the idea of, if somebody come at me and say, oh, why are you not drinking? Oh, well, I'm doing a challenge, you know.
Yeah.
So I joined the 1 year no beer. Through there, just engaging with people, I found out about other books such as This Naked Mind and then Alcohol Explained. And I just started reading all these books and just learning from other people, dipping in and out of forums. And I just completely removed all the brainwashing that I'd had about alcohol from when you're a little boy, basically. And I just dismantled it all. And I just had no desire to drink anymore at all. I just got no interest in it. I've had alcohol in the house since before I stopped drinking. It's in the cupboard, and I've just got no desire to touch it at all. You know, it's crazy. If you told me beforehand that I was going to stop drinking forever, I'd have thought you were absolutely crazy, you know. I'd have thought you were mad.
I mean, you picked a right time to do it, Christmas, so really difficult. And so your kids, a daughter or son you got?
Yeah, so a little boy who's 3 next month, and then I've got a little girl now as well she was born in February this year.
Okay.
So again, my wife was actually pregnant. She was sort of 7-month pregnant when this night out happened, and I just realised how selfish I was being. You know, I was going out and getting absolutely smashed, and then lying in bed the next day just hungover, I thought, I've got two kids and my wife's there. I just thought, what am I doing? And it was a big wake-up call. It was such a big wake-up call.
I can imagine. I've got a 2-year-old, which would have been about the age of your nipper when you made your decision, and she just wants my attention like all the time. And if I had an angle, I had Jude when I used to have hangovers around the same age as well, and I'd just be like, piss off, like leave me alone, I'm fucking dying. And not only is that terrible to the kid, like my kid now, if Liza says to Zia, where's dad? Zia will always go, he's working. So even at 2, they pick up the things that you do, even at 2. So if I was drinking and getting drunk, I'm pretty sure she would learn daddy's sick or daddy's got an anger, and then that would be more often and often and often, and then bang, you've got a blueprint of a kid who's like thinks that not only is daddy sick, but daddy sick is actually a consequence of going out and having a good time, and that's all part of the good time, not like a bad thing, So it's interesting, isn't it, how very often our vow, like when we decide that we're going to stop drinking, is tied in with something bigger than us, bigger than who we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's become particularly pronounced for me because I lost my dad when I was 18, so he died in 2002. And it's only really this year since I've stopped drinking that I've actually breathed, to be honest, and actually dealt with the emotion.
Okay,
But before, on sort of special occasions such as Father's Day or Christmas or the day he died or birthdays, if I started thinking about it, I just think, fuck it, I'm going to get pissed, I'm going to go out and get smashed, and I wouldn't deal with it. And it's only really this year that I've gone through it all and dealt with it. And I've traced it all back, and my dad had a lot of problems with drinking and depression and stuff like that, and it sort of runs in the family as well. I mean, I'm not a big believer of the whole the genes thing. If it's in your genes, that's it. You're definitely going to be an alcoholic, or you're definitely going to be addicted to something. I think it has something to play, but I'm more a believer it's the environment that is the biggest influencer. So once I've done all this work this year and I've realised everything that happened with my dad, I thought, he was 37 when he died.
Oh, that's too young, isn't it?
Far too young. And I was 33 and I stopped drinking. I'm 34 now. And I thought, hold on, am I going on the same sort of path? And all the pain I've had, not having a dad there and not having a father figure, I thought, I'm not having that. The book stops here. I'm not having that for my kids. So they've been my biggest why, to be honest. They've driven me through it. And I just look at them and think, if I want to be the best dad I can be, I can't do that being drunk. I can't do that being hungover, like you say, snapping the next day because you're so tired. It's affected your sleep so badly and you're all cranky. I just thought, I can't do it. And like you said, the sponges, 2 years old, the sponges. If you ask my little boy now, where's daddy off? It's either work or running.
Yeah. And just how you look and how you behave and your values and everything changes when you stop drinking alcohol. But I'm just going to go back a little bit. And if you don't want to talk about this, Nathan, I understand completely. When you became someone who doesn't drink alcohol, and the Father's Day started to come along, Christmas and your dad's birthdays and stuff, and you had to deal with it as opposed to running away from it. How did that feel, to feel grief?
Oh, it was heartbreaking. It was really, really difficult to have to sit there and deal with those emotions and think about it all. I'd done a lot of crying, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But I also found therapy in running. So I would go out, I'd put my running trainers on, and I would just run and run and run. I'd think it through as I was running. You've seen the photo that I sent you of me last year. I was 18 and a half stone, and now I'm 13 and a half stone. So, lost a lot of weight, and that's all been through running. But that's how I dealt with a lot of the grief, was clearing the mind whilst out running. But I had to deal with it. I had to sort of sit there and go through the emotions, and it does hurt. But it's the only way you ever deal with it. If you continue to just keep blocking it out with alcohol or whatever substance you want to choose, you will never, ever get over that grief. And the next day when you wake up with that stinking hangover, you feel even sadder because then you're just tired as well on top of all the grief. So I just realised that the only way sort of to deal with the emotions is to go through it and process it all, which I'd never done.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's something that's quite prevalent within Strive movement. You know, there's a lot of people who lose loved ones far too early, and alcohol becomes a way of not having to deal with the pain associated with loss. And I think it was David Burns, you know, listening to the Feeling Good podcast, where David Burns had to deal with like thousands upon thousands of people who were coming to him running away from, you know, emotions such as sadness, for example. And then David explaining that sadness is not a bad, to be sad is not a bad emotion. Like to be able to deal with the fact that we've lost someone and the pain of loss, there's also like this sadness of the remembrance and the fondness of them which you're also going to miss if you're blocking out your drink. So like I've never lost anyone, Nathan, but I went through a divorce, you know, and everything I read is like a divorce, you know, is quite similar. And it felt like she died, but it was even weirder because she was there. Like I couldn't touch her or talk to her or communicate with her, but there she is, right? And for me, what helped me was being able to think about the good parts of my relationship and have gratitude in that really helped me deal with the pain and the suffering of it. But much more than help me, it was a lovely experience as well, because I was able to go, oh yeah, like, you know, I loved having this time. Whereas previously I probably would have drunk it away because I was afraid of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, afraid to sort of face up to the sadness, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely truth in that. I mean, if I hadn't dealt with it then this year, then I probably never have got to the point where I joined all the dots about the problems he had in his life and how that might have, you know, come into my life if I hadn't got hold of it. So, I mean, it took enormous strength from actually dealing with the grief. I say he died 2002, so it was a long time ago, and to store that grief up for a long time and then have to release it, it does hurt. But like you say, strength from it as well. And now I feel like I can deal with any situation because I've gone through something so difficult that if life chucks me a curveball, you know, I'm ready to take it. And I just feel so much stronger physically and mentally with not having the fog of alcohol sort of hanging over me.
I mean, for you listening there, folks, you know, it's really great that Nathan's opening up and sharing this because it's like some real valuable lessons here. You know, I became somebody who doesn't drink alcohol in 2009. And as you all know, regular listeners, I drank again when I went through my divorce. So, you know, I thought I had it licked, alcohol had no value. And all of a sudden, something presents itself to me that I would never have been able to. I could put it in a risk assessment and write it down and go, yeah, what if my wife dies? You know, and what if my wife dies? I will have the support of the Strive movement and I will listen to my podcast and read my book, right? Yeah, maybe that would have made a difference. I don't know. But back then when I was all alone, when I had no Strive and all this kind of stuff, and it threw me completely. Now, we can never really truly plan for death. We can never truly plan for some of the really fucking shitty things that can happen in our life. But, you know, I take solace in what Sam Harris said on a podcast that wasn't a podcast actually, it was his Waking Up app. So he has meditations on there and he has lessons on there. And one of his lessons, he was talking about the meaning of life. And he said that our perception of the pain and suffering that we can experience in the world, living in the Western culture, it's very unlikely that it is as difficult as we think it is. In other words, we underestimate our ability as a species to be able to deal with whatever is thrown at us. And unfortunately, it's not until someone like Nathan experiences that grieving process and faces it head on that he realizes, wow, I can do that, right? So now that makes him more confident. Now, by listening to podcasts like this and you hear people like Nathan saying, I got through that process and you're still going through it and it will be a lifetime thing for you. But you can pull some great positivity from that you have the strength to do it. So, you know, people you're listening, you might not have experienced grief, but take some inspiration here from what Nathan is saying and believe in yourself that you are capable of overcoming anything. And when the time comes, you are less likely to fall into alcohol's willing arms and open legs. Do you buy that kind of like little soapbox moment?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it just makes you more resilient. I'm much more resilient now that I've gone through all that. That I don't really fear anything coming my way. I'll deal with it because I'll be thinking clearly. I'll make clear, rational decisions. I mean, a lot of the mistakes I've made in my life, looking back, a lot of them were due to alcohol. Stupid things that I've done, stupid decisions I made. We were sort of either hungover or, at the time being drunk, whatever. So once you get it out of the way, once you move alcohol out of the way, it just opens up your whole life in front of you, and you just get enormous strength and confidence that you can deal with stuff.
So funny, Nick, because a lot of people are drinking alcohol because they haven't got any confidence, and as soon as they stop drinking, they've got the confidence.
Yeah.
Classic William Porter moment.
Yeah, or, This Naked Mind, it deals with the sort of confidence side of it. And people, I used to drink to get the confidence, to get over my shyness. And then I just dismantle that argument. I realised it doesn't make you confident at all. It actually robs you of confidence. It makes you anxious.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing I suffered with was a social anxiety. I developed a real bad social anxiety where I felt really, really nervous just going to the sort of supermarket or into the town centre. I didn't want to see people, and now I can just go in and just do what I want. I can go wherever I want. I don't fear seeing anybody because I look healthy. I am healthy. I can talk to people. I've got my confidence back. I've got my balance back. So all these things, all these reasons I drank for, they're just all complete bollocks. But it took me like 20 years to realise it because the sort of brainwashing and social conditioning around alcohol, especially in the UK, is just, it's dreadful. It's just so strong, and you don't even realise that you're being programmed like this until somebody like Annie Grace comes along with that book, or William Porter, and you just tear it all to bits. Just down block by block, and you just realise it's all nonsense.
Very definitely. Let's go back a little bit to you talking about genetics and the family lineage of problems with alcohol and depression and the likes. And then you said something that I think is important. You said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't believe that it's all to do with genetics, it's environment and all that kind of thing. So what are your thoughts around how an addiction plays out in terms of what you've learned in your personal experience and how it all kind of pieces together?
I think, like I said earlier, environment is the biggest one. As you've said before, people like us do things like this, and if you're surrounded by people who just drink, or it's prevalent in your life, then you're more likely to end up drinking. And the gene side of it, I don't think there's any evidence that has been pinpointed to say there's one particular gene that if you have that gene, you're definitely going to be addicted to alcohol or something else. It may make you more sort of vulnerable to becoming addicted, but environment is key. Once you change your environment, it completely just blows it away. But the other one really, I think, is education. That's the biggest thing for me, was education. When I educated myself about the facts, I sat down, I got the facts about how it affects the mind and the body and what it does to you. I just thought, well, why would I put that in my body? Why am I going to drink this stuff? It's doing nothing for me. Everything I thought it was doing is just.
I'm kind of like very anti-biology, and I think I'm anti-biology, Nathan, because I don't understand it. Yeah. So I build up this great big psychological argument, so I don't have to go there. And one of the things I used to think about was, well, if it's a genetic thing, then why can't I just remove that gene? And if I just did remove that gene, then, would I fix my problem? And why does everybody in Ogmore Vale have that same gene? Why does everybody in Carlisle have that same gene, right? That's how I used to think. But then when I read Joe Dispenza's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, I started to learn that in changing the way that we think and changing the way that the neocortex and the limbic brain and the cerebellum are working together to create these automatic behaviors, such as I walk into a pub, I'm going to drink alcohol, right? So once you work on that by meditating, and meditating doesn't have to be sitting down or yoga, like meditation could be running like you were doing. Meditation could be sitting down and reading the Allen Carr book, right? And at the same time that we're thinking these things, we're changing our genes, right? So I think, there's a piece of work we do in the intensive where it's called Why We're All Addicts, where everybody can pinpoint there's something that they do that probably they're addicted to do it, that they would find it really difficult to stop doing. Like if I said to you tomorrow, you're never going to do any more running, I'm not saying you're addicted to it, but you might be like, I don't know if I want to just stop doing that type of thing. So, that is something that could be healthy. That's something that could be unhealthy, So I like the Myers-Salovich approach where, a little bit of genes sprinkled in with a little bit of environment, sprinkled in with a little bit of culture, etc., etc. But it's what you focus on, I think, that is super important, because you could have just turned around and gone, oh, shit, right. So all my lineage, everyone's been a quote unquote had a problem with alcohol. Well, that's it. I'm fucked. But instead you said, no, I want to learn more about this. And then you started to debunk the myths, and then you started to take ownership and control. I think that's difficult to do if you're thinking to yourself, your DNA's fucked you type of thing,
Yeah. You sort of lose all hope if you just take up that argument. Oh well, that's just the way it is. I've just got to let this life pan out ahead of me, Yeah. I just decided to take action. I wasn't buying that argument at all, really.
So as you're reading Allen Carr's book, if you're anything like me when I was reading it, there's different light bulb moments that go on, Can you remember some of the ones that you thought, fucking hell, oh, that's so obvious, or fucking hell, is really? What were your light bulb moments?
Yeah, I think probably two that I would pull out is the first one's the pitcher plan. The pitcher plan. You just boom, that everybody who's drinking is somewhere on that pitcher plan, and it just takes a certain tragedy in your life for you to perhaps slide a little bit further down. So the pitcher plant was massive for me, and probably the one about the taste of alcohol. I did think, I love the taste of beer. I sort of fell for the craft beer argument. Oh yeah, I love this IPA, or I love this one, and then I sort of started thinking back to my first pint and how it tasted like absolute shite. And I was like surrounded by my mates, 16, and I'm literally trying to force this thing down just to and make it look like I was enjoying it. And you develop the taste, and you do. If your taste buds change, if you keep drinking the same thing over and over again, one, it's got the addictive stuff in it, the alcohol, so you're going to become addictive. But two, you just get used to that particular taste. Now, when I have I sometimes still have an alcohol-free beer if I've got a social function, just to sort of, I don't know, again, try to fit in a little bit, I suppose. I really enjoy it. I have one or I have two, and then I put it to bed. Because I don't really enjoy the taste of it. But yeah, I think they were the two ones that really stood out for me, was the taste and the pitcher plant.
Yeah, the pitcher plant one, if I remember rightly, it was one where there's this sticky, kind of really sweet, kind of like Sarlacc pit kind of Star Wars monster plant. And then the flies go in there to taste the nectar, but the more that they take, the fatter they become. So it's more difficult for them to fly out. And when they realize that they're just about to be ingested into the plant, they cannot fly out. They're stuck, right?
Yeah. So they're looking at the almost dead flies at the bottom of the pitcher plant, which is your alcoholic on the park bench, stinking a piss, as you would say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not like that guy because I'm all the way up here and I just like the social drink, But in reality, if you continue drinking, there's only one place you're going to end up potentially is further down in that pitcher plant. And if you ask anybody, are you drinking more now than you were drinking 5 or 10 years ago? The answer is always yes, because you build a tolerance. And when I started to understand the concept of the tolerance that William Porter in Alcohol Explained breaks down so well, you just think, having one pint just becomes pointless because it no longer has the same effect. Then you need to have two, and it's just one trajectory. It only goes one way. But yeah, the pitcher plant was just nailed it for me, really.
The Pitcher plant. We use the alcohol spectrum because we say that everybody who drinks alcohol is on the spectrum. And the spectrum is like that, obviously. And if you drink too much, you're down towards the elbow. Damn you, Allen Carr. Wish I could have had the pitcher plant. I might just steal it anyway, steal everything else.
Why not?
Why not? And I'm definitely going to patent stinking of piss. Right, after you just said that one. What else am I going to ask you? So somewhere through the Allen Carr book, he springs it on you, doesn't he? He says, yeah, you know, I fooled you a little bit at the front. I said, you've come in here thinking you're going to moderate because everybody wants to moderate. But actually, you can't moderate. The only way you can get over this is to stop drinking permanently. How did you feel when you read that?
I think I was just ready. I was at that point in my life where I was done. I was just fed up with the hangovers and the feeling like crap and being overweight and unhealthy. And it just didn't really bother me. And because all the different things that I believed to be true were dismantled throughout the book, I just thought, well, fine. I actually read both of these books. So you had one which was the easy way to control alcohol, and there was the stop drinking now.
Right.
Stop drinking now. So I had one on Audible, and I listened to that as I was sort of driving around for work. And the other one was the control alcohol. So I think when it got to that point, I was done anyway. So it just didn't bother me. I had no interest in moderating. And then I sort of went on and got into This Naked Mind, and Annie Grace done a really good episode on moderation podcast. And you realise that moderation is basically a bit of a fantasy, you know, like what is the point in moderating? It just becomes one, sort of pointless, and two, unachievable for most people. So, I mean, I did have a little bit on my journey, maybe about 8 or 9 months in, where I started to think, oh, well, maybe I could go back to having a drink, you know, now and again. And then I think that podcast sort of landed in my lap somewhere around that time. And I was like, why? You know, why are you even thinking this? To bed. So just little things, sort of timing, just things kept coming to me throughout the journey, just little sort of signals. I'd sort of see people as I was out walking, they'd be completely rat-ass coming up to me and in the middle of the street and falling over and asking, oh, have you got a light? And I just look at them and like, what's going on? I was living in a, you know,
it's like the world had changed, isn't it? It's like the Matrix has suddenly been revealed to you and you can't look at things in the same way.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Or I'd go out and I'd socialise with people that I'd socialised with before, and I'd be there just having alcohol-free beers, and it's great, you know, having a good time and catching up with people until you get like 3 or 4 beers in, and then people start getting daft and they're talking over each other and repeating themselves over and over again. And again, you see those situations for what they actually are. You know, before, alcohol was sort of making them tolerable. You thought alcohol was making it sort of, you know, it was an essential part of the night, but you sort of realise when you take that away that those environments after a certain point aren't very fun anyway. And again, you sort of realise that the value in those events is being with your friends. And when your friends sort of drift off and they're not very present anymore because they're, you know, a bit merry, you sort of realise what it's taken away. It's removing that connection that you perhaps had at the start of the night.
Let's focus on that then, because I think that's an important one. You said earlier on that one of the reasons that you realised you was drinking alcohol was socially, to fit in with people. And the thought of one of your concerns about stopping drinking, one of your challenges was, am I going to be left alone? Is a tribe going to, you know, boot me out? Is my status going to drop, you know, within that tribe? Am I going to be lonely, et cetera, et cetera? And this is something that, for me anyway, personally, I think Allen Carr didn't cover very well, and you know, almost gave a bit of duff information, really. Maybe it's different for a 50, 60-year-old who was writing the book at the time compared to someone like me who was like in the early 30s and fucking mad for it. But Allen Carr was like, hey, you know, don't change your life. Yeah, you've don't change your life. It's really important you don't change your life. So if you go out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's what you do, keep doing it. And I was like, okay. And then I go out and I'm like, whoa, everyone's a fucking dickhead. Like, I am not doing this anymore. Like, and now I am kind of lonely. Come on, where's Alan? You know, Alan's dead, isn't he? Because, like, you know, he's passed away because he smoked too many cigarettes before he realised his own kind of like life-changing philosophy. So how did you get over that? How do you socialize today? Did you lose people? Did people come along with you? How did that work out?
Yeah, I mean, certainly some people have faded away, but that's fine. I'm cool with it, because I'm doing this for me. This is what I want to do in life. I'm just done with drinking. So if those people don't necessarily want to socialize anymore, that's fine. But I've still got a good core group of friends that have still been there. I still go out from time to time with them. But I just found new stuff to do. I've developed new running buddies, so I'm out there running and enjoying that. And that's fine. I go hiking a lot, and I still go out for meals. I just don't go out with them when they're getting absolutely pissed, because it just becomes boring, past a certain point. But I'll still go out, have a couple of soft drinks, whatever, alcohol-free beers, and then, I'll make my exit before it all gets daft, and I'm fine.
What are they like when you make your early exit?
I tend just to not mention it if I can. Wait till they get to the point where they're just, in their own little world, and I just don't make a fuss. Because the minute you start saying, right, that's me off, you try to bend your ear, oh, come on, just stay, have another, like, no, I'm off, I just slide off.
That's a lesson in itself, though, isn't it? That to be honest, if we all just fucked off, they wouldn't even care. They wouldn't even know you're there, because everyone is so lost. Like, they're just in a completely new, different world. So self-absorbed. So, self-absorbed's even the wrong word. They're just not there. I think it was, going to butcher a name now, but it was Zara Zita I had on a podcast guest, who gave the great metaphor, although I use it as a metaphor, she actually believes this happens, is that when you drink alcohol, because of the toxins that come in your body, your soul says, fuck this for a laugh, and it leaves your body, but it remains tethered, so it doesn't like disappear into somebody else's body. And then the toxic soul comes in and overtakes, and it's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde thing, right? Now, she believes this really happens. I love the metaphorical nature of it. But, when I see my dad go from being sober to drunk, he looks like a different guy. Like, his eyes droop. He's got an aggressive nature about him. I used to say to my mates, I'm off. And I remember the first couple of times I said that, they'd take the piss. But then once they got used to this is who I was, they used to call me Ching, right? The actual Ching departure moment was a feature in itself. Everybody would like come round and give me great big hugs. They'd have a drink to me going. They'd say, thank you for coming out. I really appreciate you coming out, because they knew that they were dickheads and they appreciated me doing something that I didn't want to do. And I got to be honest, Nate, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, I loved it, because that is everything about going out. Connections, laugh, old stories, memories, sharing, talking about, football or whatever is floats your boat. That is perfect. And then you only realize, well, actually, if we went to Starbucks, mate, boys, if we all stop drinking and go to Starbucks, we can stay there until 1 o'clock in the morning and keep doing this if you want. It's absurd, isn't it? It's absurd.
It is. I mean, I've made a few mistakes over the journey, really. I'm quite overzealous to start with, trying to run around and save everybody else, because you sort of realise, you get this light bulb of, this stuff's absolutely, it's killing you, it's removing all your happiness and all this sort of stuff. And you can see people struggling in their own lives and going around trying to help people. And probably didn't get that bit right. And, I've sort of curtailed it now. I know the only way really is to just be the lighthouse and lead by example. And lots of people come up to me now and they try and ask, how did you do it? And what books did you read? And I just really lead by example with it now. Certainly was too overzealous to start with.
I was the same. Still am, as you can tell. But I guess because I quote unquote do this for a living now, whenever someone comes to me, I don't know, it's who I am. So it's difficult for me to get away from it. But in the beginning, especially when I wasn't in full control of the knowledge that I was reading, so like I'm the type of person, Nathan, I read something and I think I own it. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like I've just read this book about how to hypnotize people, and I'm like fucking Darren Brown, you know? And it's not like that, is it? But hey, it goes to show me that you've got a big heart, and service is really important to you, and your friendships are important to you, your family's important to you, and you want to give back and help people. So I think that's a fantastic thing. Let's spend a few minutes now talking about the good stuff. So I have never seen a photograph like the one you sent me, and hopefully everybody's seen it because it will be advertised on the podcast. It looks like a completely different person. So you stop drinking alcohol. What happens? Like, what's happening to your thinking? How do you go from being a slob to running ultramarathons and looking as good as you do? What happens?
Well, I started with the gym. I just thought, right, I read a lot about getting back into physical fitness and having a challenge, and I just got back into the gym, started going there every day, and I couldn't even run to start with. I was that overweight and sort of unfit that I just went on the elliptical, the cross trainer. I was just on there 30 minutes a day, and yeah, giving it all that. Yeah, and I was just doing that, lost a bit of weight, and then I started with the NHS Couch to 5K app on my phone, and I couldn't run like a minute without being completely blowing and then having to walk 30 seconds. And I just worked my way through that. It was like 9 weeks of run, walk, built up to a 5K, done the 5K, and then just progressed, done a 10K. Then I went on to a half marathon, and then I just signed up for some crazy ultra marathon, which was like 50 miles across the Lake District Fells, 4,000 meters of climb. Signed up for it, and I just had that in my mind, and I was going to do it, and I did it. And just along the way, I shedded all the weight, lost like 20% body fat. My resting heart rate went from like 85 beats a minute to 48 beats a minute, and my skin just got so healthy. And it took 10 years off me. People walk past me in the street and not recognize me. And a message on Facebook like, was that you I saw in town earlier? I was like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. The skin one for me, definitely. Like lots of people say to me, how old are you? I'll say, I'm 44. There's no way you're 44. I say, well, if I was drinking alcohol, I look 64. But all right, let's go back a little bit. Right. So you stop drink. You stop drinking. You're a bit of a slob. Let's not like beat around the bush here. I've seen a photograph. Obviously, someone in that state is like not really giving a fuck about what they're eating, not doing any exercise or anything. You read this book. Some guy tells you about the pitcher plant. You all of a sudden get a light bulb moment and decide, well, I'm never drinking alcohol again. But you're a slob who's decided he's never going to drink alcohol again. Like, what was it? What was it that changed? You can still be a slob and not drink alcohol. So I always say, Nathan, there's a big difference between quitting alcohol and becoming someone who doesn't drink alcohol. One is an action you take. The other is a paradigm shift, a soul-changing shift. So what was it for you? What made you go on and do better things in your life?
Well, I think, again, another thing I've always struggled with my weight. Always, when I was a kid, I was always taunted at school for being overweight, and so I wouldn't say I was bullied, but I was certainly taunted and pressured and stuff like that. But because I drank, and when I drank, I wanted to eat shit food, and the next day when I was hungover, I wanted to eat takeaway, and I just wasn't caring about what I put in my body. When I finally got the alcohol out of the way, and I wasn't drinking that crap anymore, I wasn't craving as much sugar and takeaways and hangover food, I started to change my diet. I started to look into eating more healthily. And again, with the 1 year no beer thing, they really encourage you to sign up to a physical challenge. So I did. I just signed up for a 5K trail race. Right. And then I was just sort of focusing on that. And then once I got that one done, I said, right, I'm going to do a half marathon. And I actually run the half marathon in like 1 hour 39, which, it's a fast time considering where I am. And then that challenge was done, and then I just looked, how can I go bigger? And I just kept bouncing onto things. I had so much energy and drive that I felt like I was making up for lost time as well. I'd struggled with this thing for years, weight and fitness and not achieving my goals. That once I started to be able to do that, because I wasn't struggling with hangovers and lack of motivation anymore, I just seemed to bounce from one thing to the next and one thing to the next, and it just drove me on. And now I'm sat here, looking at 2019, and I've signed up for another 2 crazy events. I've got another 50-mile race to do and a 75-mile trail race.
A 75-mile race. There
Yes.
you are. You couldn't even get off the couch and now you're running 75 miles.
Sometimes I have to pinch myself and just I look back at those photos last year, I just cannot believe. Well, I actually say now that isn't the same person. That person in that photo, that isn't me. That's somebody else. That's somebody who just stopped caring about themselves and the body and the rest of it. And I was just floating through life. I really was. I just didn't care.
There's a great power, isn't there? There's a great power in looking around, thinking to yourself, wow, I'm the only person I know that stopped drinking alcohol. And I know deep down in my heart that the only reason everybody else, not everybody, but the only reason a lot of them haven't done the same is because they can't.
Yeah, they're scared.
And that then you think to yourself, well, what else can I do? Can I leave my job? Can I get out of this relationship? Can I make a startup? Can I run a 75-mile race? And I think that power of suddenly realizing that you've just done something that's life-changing is really, really, really the springboard, So well done, buddy. Well done. I'm going to ask you one last question. I'm going to let you go. How does being someone that doesn't drink alcohol make you feel?
Wow. Just free. I just feel free and just happy, Yeah, freedom. I'm just not tied to it anymore, I'm not thinking about, right, when am I going to go out this weekend and I'm going to have to recover and all the crap that comes with it. I just don't even think about it, I just don't feel like I'm tied to doing that anymore. And it makes me just look at my life now, opening up. What I've achieved this year is immense, looking back now from where I was to where I am now. And I just think, well, what can I do in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line? I just feel excited, free and excited, really. And
your kids and your wife are very fortunate. I'm going to chuck one last question at you because I just lied. What advice would you give to someone who's overweight, can't get off the couch, is worried that if they'll stop drinking, nobody will love them, they're having hangovers all the time? What one piece of advice would you give to someone?
I think just just don't feel trapped. Just pick up a book, get on the internet, start searching, start reading, and just make a start. Just make a start, because unless you take that first step forward, and not just say the usual, I'm never drinking again, you will never, you'll never progress. You just get stuck. I was stuck for years with that. I'm never drinking again. I feel like shit. When I actually made the decision just to start and get some information, some facts, I was off and I was running, and I haven't looked back. Yeah, just get going. Get going is my advice.
And let me ask you, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lee. Just get a support network, whether that's, getting on Strive with you guys, whether that's One Year No Beer or Club Soda or whatever it is. Surround yourself with other people who want to make the same change as you, and then learn off those people. Look ahead. Because I looked ahead at people on the 1 Year No Beer challenge. I looked at their transformations, and I thought, well, if that guy or that girl can do it, then I can do it. It's possible. Whereas before, all I did was look all around my circle of friends who were all still drinking and the rest of it, and I just didn't see any way out at all. There was no way out. It was, if I give up drinking, my life's going to be miserable because all my friends just drink. That's all they do. So get a support network is probably my biggest tip.
And you said at the beginning of the podcast that you felt nervous. Are you nervous now?
Not really. No, it's faded away now.
How many times do we perceive that something is going to be very different than what it actually turns out? And bear that in mind, folks, when you start thinking about whether or not you can quit alcohol or not. You are more powerful than you think you are. Nathan Simpson proves that. Nathan, thank you very much for being a guest. And I really appreciate it that you reached out and wrote to me and sent me that photograph, because it made me cry, mate. I record these podcasts and I say this repeatedly. I never know anyone's listening to them. You don't, do you? You know what I mean? It's like you have no clue. I'm walking around the street with a selfie stick in my hand, everyone thinking I'm a dickhead. And yeah, I don't think anyone's listening. So when you send that type of thing, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
Well, Lee, I mean, personally, I'd just like to say thank you for everything that you do. You know, I've listened to you religiously on the podcast. You know, I drive all around the country for work, and every time I get in, I'm looking for a new episode. And even though I know I've beat alcohol, I'm never going to go back there. It's about more than beating alcohol. You know, it's about all the other stuff that comes with it, all the other learning that comes. And it's so important that people like you are out there and leading the way and doing this and giving other people hope. And the fact that you dedicate your life to it is just, it's amazing. Just like to thank you. If it wasn't for you, me finding you, I'd probably, or maybe just still stuck where I was, and not be sat here nice and slim, running miles and miles and miles, and loving life.
You're going to get me crying again.
Sorry, mate.
Thank you very much, Nathan. You have a wonderful day.
And you, Lee. Thank you.